Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a woman who walks into a room with no circle around her, no cheering section, no hand to hold, yet she stands taller than those surrounded by many. Imagine someone the world calls alone, but in her silence she has built an unshakable strength, a fire that cannot be dimmed, a crown that no one gave her, but she forged herself. This is not a story of loneliness. It is a story of power, of resilience, of discovering that even when no one stands beside you, you can rise and conquer on your own. A woman with no friends is often seen as a shadow, as though her worth is measured only by the company she keeps, by the laughter she shares in crowded rooms, by the number of hands that reach for her in moments of silence. But there is a different truth, one carved not in loneliness but in resilience. To be without friends is not to be without power. It is to learn the shape of your own voice without the chorus of others trying to drown it. It is to discover the deep well of your own presence, to sit inside the quiet and know you are enough, even when the world tells you otherwise. There is a kind of strength that comes from being unseen. The woman with no friends knows the sharp edge of solitude, but she also knows the clarity it brings. She is not scattered by gossip or swayed by whispers in the crowd. Her mind is not cluttered with the constant noise of others' expectations. Instead, she has the gift of her own focus, her own rhythm, her own unshakable direction. Where others stumble over the need for approval, she walks unburdened, carrying only the weight of her own determination. They call her lonely, but what they fail to see is the empire she builds in silence. A woman with no friends learns how to sit with herself long enough to build her own dreams brick by brick. She is her own counsel, her own witness, her own cheerleader. She does not wait for someone to validate her ideas or to tell her she is worthy. She does not crumble when no one claps for her victories. She claps for herself. She stands taller because no one else is there to hold her up, and she has learned that she doesn't need them to. There is courage in that kind of independence, the kind that doesn't beg to be understood. When the nights are quiet and the silence presses heavy on the walls, she has made peace with it. She has stared into that silence until it no longer feels like emptiness, but like freedom. The woman with no friends has found a way to make herself enough, and that is something most people will never understand, because most people are terrified of being alone. They do not realize how much power is hidden there. She is not friendless. She is limitless. She is not abandoned. She is untethered. Her spirit is not weakened by the absence of others. It is sharpened. A woman with no friends does not fold herself into the shapes others demand because there is no one there to demand it. She does not waste her fire trying to keep anyone else warm. She keeps it for herself, and it burns brighter because of it. People will look at her and pity her, but they do not realize that pity is wasted here. She has tasted solitude and turned it into strength. She has taken the silence of her phone, the empty calendar, the unopened invitations, and she has transformed them into space for growth. She has learned new skills, built new visions, crafted a life that is unshakable. She has learned how to be her own companion, and because of that, she cannot be broken by abandonment, cannot be destroyed by betrayal, cannot be undone by the absence of applause. A woman with no friends has the kind of resilience that frightens people. They wonder how she keeps going without a support system, without a cheering section, without the constant validation that most people cling to like oxygen. But she doesn't need it. She is oxygen to herself. She is fire to herself. She is light to herself. That is why she is dangerous, because no one... Yes, the world may look at her and whisper that she is alone, but they do not realize she has found something deeper than friendship, deeper than approval, deeper than company. She has found herself. And once you find yourself, truly find yourself, you are never without companionship. You carry your own presence into every room. You are never left behind because you go everywhere you need to go with the only person who will never abandon you, you. The woman with no friends walks a road most people would fear. She has endured the weight of silence, the sting of exclusion, the ache of absence, but she has risen from it stronger sharper, more determined than those who surround themselves with endless company. She has a kind of quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard, the kind that doesn't need to be validated to be real, the kind that can build an empire out of silence, a kingdom out of solitude, a legacy out of her own unshakable spirit. A woman with no friends is not broken. She is not to be pitied. She is proof that solitude can be sacred, that independence can be beautiful, that self-sufficiency can be the greatest gift of all. She is not fragile. She is unbreakable. She is not empty. She is overflowing. She is not lost. She is exactly where she needs to be. And if you ever meet her, do not underestimate her. Do not assume her silence is weakness. Do not mistake her solitude for despair. She is not lacking. She is complete. She has chosen, whether by circumstance or by strength, to stand with herself. And there is nothing more powerful than a woman who has learned to stand alone. She has learned that silence is not the enemy, but a teacher. In the moments when the world grows quiet and there is no hand to reach for, no voice to answer back, she has discovered the sound of her own heartbeat and the rhythm of her own breath. That rhythm has become her anchor, her compass, her steady reminder that she is alive, she is present, and she is capable of moving forward without needing anyone else to set the pace. There is no hesitation in her stride, because her path is carved by her own steps alone. Every time she wakes up to an empty room, she transforms the emptiness into space for possibility. She paints her mornings with discipline, with dreams, with the kind of focus that others lose in the distraction of constant chatter. When others fill their hours with noise, she fills hers with intention. Her solitude has become her training ground, a place where her mind grows sharper, her soul grows deeper, and her spirit grows stronger. She has learned to trust her own instincts, to honor her own thoughts, to sit with her own fears until they no longer have power over her. The strength that comes from this kind of life is rare. It is the strength of someone who does not crumble when the room is empty, who does not collapse when no one is clapping, who does not wither when no one is watching. This strength is not loud, but it is unshakable. It is not flashy, but it is enduring. It is the strength of someone who has endured the weight of invisibility and turned it into armor. The kind of strength that is not built on the shaky foundation of others' opinions, but rooted deep in the soil of her own resilience. She carries herself differently because of this. When she walks into a room, she does not beg for attention. She does not seek approval. She does not shrink to make others comfortable. She stands with the quiet confidence of someone who knows her worth, does not depend on who notices it. She does not fear rejection because she has already faced it. She does not dread abandonment because she has already lived through it. She does not cling to others for survival because she has already learned how to breathe on her own. What others see as isolation, she has turned into freedom. She has no one to answer to but herself, no one to compare herself to, no one to drain her energy with demands she does not wish to meet. She has created a life where her choices are her own, where her time belongs to her, where her growth is not limited by the boundaries of others' expectations. She does not need to conform, to mold herself, to shrink or expand to fit in. She has carved a place where she fits perfectly because it was made by her, for her, with no compromises. People wonder how she keeps going without companionship, without validation, without the constant pull of connection. But the truth is, she has built a relationship with herself so strong that it cannot be broken. She has learned to talk herself through the hard days, to cheer herself on through the victories, to forgive herself for the stumbles. She has become her own ally, her own confidant, her own guide. That kind of inner alliance is worth more than 1,000 shallow friendships, worth more than 100 insincere voices, worth more than any fleeting praise. She has discovered that when you stop needing the world to fill you, you begin to overflow on your own. Her solitude is not empty space, but fertile ground, where ideas bloom, where passions ignite, where visions expand. In her quiet, she writes, she builds, she dreams, she creates. She takes all that others waste in gossip and noise and pours it into her own becoming. The life she is shaping is not dependent on whether anyone walks beside her, because she has already proven she can walk the road alone. She has walked through the fire of loneliness and come out tempered, refined, unburned. The flames that were meant to consume her have instead made her radiant. She does not wear scars of pity, but badges of survival. She has learned that the absence of friends is not the absence of worth, but the invitation to cultivate a deeper connection to herself. The world often tells women that they must be surrounded to be significant, that their power lies in their relationships, that their value is measured by their social circle. She has shattered that illusion. Her power is hers alone, untouched, undeniable, unshakable. When she faces the world, she does so with eyes wide open. She is not fooled by false smiles or shallow words. She has lived in silence too long to be deceived by noise. She recognizes authenticity, she treasures depth, and she does not waste herself on the surface-level bonds that crumble at the first sign of struggle. If someone is to walk into her life, they must be real, they must be strong, they must be able to stand in the presence of someone who has already built herself from the ground up. Her solitude has not made her bitter. It has made her discerning. She does not chase after people because she knows she is not lacking. She does not fear missing out because she knows she has everything she needs within her. She does not apologize for her silence, for her independence, for her refusal to settle. She understands that her path is different, and she embraces it without hesitation. What others see as an absence, she sees as abundance. What others fear, she has turned into fuel. And in this way, she becomes unstoppable. There is nothing anyone can take from her because she has already proven she can live without it. There is nothing anyone can withhold because she has already learned to provide for herself. There is nothing anyone can use against her because she has already embraced the parts of herself the world tries to shame. She is free, and that freedom is her greatest weapon. The woman who has no friends is the woman who has faced the mirror and not looked away. She has stared into her own reflection until she recognized not just her face, but her power, her fire, her resilience. She has embraced every scar, every flaw, every imperfection, and turned them into proof of survival, own source of strength. She has realized that walking alone is not a curse, but a calling. It is a path carved out of courage, one where every step is hers to claim, where every victory belongs solely to her, and where every setback transforms into another layer of resilience. Without the distraction of a crowd, she has learned to listen to her own voice, to decipher the language of her own intuition, to hear the whispers of her dreams more clearly than the roar of outside opinions. The world may misinterpret her silence, but her silence is not emptiness. It is strategy. It is focus. It is strength. Each day she stands in the mirror and sees not the absence of companionship, but the abundance of possibility. She recognizes that while others seek constant affirmation, she has found hers in her persistence, in her ability to keep showing up for herself when no one else does. She does not measure her worth by the number of phone calls she receives or the number of people who remember her birthday. Her worth is measured in the quiet victories that no one else sees, in the battles she wins in her own mind, in the mountains she climbs without witnesses, in the storms she endures without shelter. That is where her value is forged, in the invisible places where her spirit refuses to break. There is a fierceness that grows in someone who learns to rely on themselves alone. She does not crumble when ignored. She does not break when overlooked. She has carried the weight of invisibility long enough to realize it does not diminish her. It frees her. She does not need the spotlight to shine. She is her own flame, her own fire, her own source of light. And in a world obsessed with being seen, there is an untouchable power in someone who no longer needs to be noticed to know they are significant. When she moves with intention. Her steps are not hurried by fear of missing out, or slowed by the weight of clinging attachments. She knows where she is going because she has taken the time to map her own direction, to write her own script, to draw her own blueprint. She is not distracted by the noise of comparison, not weakened by the absence of applause. She builds, she grows, she creates, not because someone is watching, but because she refuses to stop becoming. She knows that greatness is not born in crowds, but in solitude, in the quiet persistence of one person who refuses to give up. Her solitude has sharpened her instincts. She can sense who comes with genuine intent and who carries hidden motives. She is not fooled by false charm, not seduced by shallow promises, not swayed by temporary attention. Because she has learned to live without, she is not desperate to cling to what is offered. She can wait. She can discern. She can choose. And when she chooses, it will not be out of need, but out of strength, not out of fear, but out of clarity, not out of loneliness, but out of abundance. She knows that some will see her and wonder why she is unaccompanied, why she does not gather people around her, why she does not chase after belonging. What they do not understand is that she already belongs to herself, to her vision, to her journey. She is not missing pieces. She is complete. She does not need to be filled. She is overflowing. And so she walks with a calm confidence that unsettles those who cannot imagine thriving without constant validation. The nights that once felt heavy with silence have become her sacred hours of growth. She uses them to study, to create, to reflect, to plan. While others drown themselves in noise to avoid their own thoughts, she has confronted hers and mastered them. She has turned solitude into her sanctuary, her place of preparation, her ground of transformation. And from that sanctuary emerges a woman who is not fragile but fortified, not waiting but advancing, not yearning but thriving. She has discovered that there is a beauty in not being surrounded. She can shape her days without compromise, choose her path without hesitation, make her decisions without being swayed. She has discovered the luxury of self-reliance, the freedom of not being chained to others' expectations, the peace of not having to constantly perform for acceptance. Where others exhaust themselves trying to fit in, she flourishes by standing apart. In her solitude, she has found her creativity, her courage, her clarity. She has written words that would never have been spoken in crowded rooms. She has crafted ideas that would have been silenced by others' doubts. She has pursued visions that might have been abandoned if she had waited for company. The absence of friends has not diminished her. It has given her space to expand, to reach, to stretch into the fullness of who she was always meant to be. She knows the sting of being misunderstood, the ache of being overlooked, the heaviness of being excluded, but she has turned every wound into wisdom, every slight into fuel, every rejection into redirection. The things that were meant to weaken her have only made her unbreakable. The things that were meant to silence her have only deepened her voice. The things that were meant to isolate her have only revealed her strength. There is something extraordinary about someone who no longer fears being alone, because once you no longer fear it, there is nothing the world can hold over you. You cannot be manipulated by the threat of abandonment. You cannot be controlled by the promise of acceptance. You cannot be broken by the absence of companionship. You are free, and that freedom is the foundation of a power that no crowd, no friend, no foe can ever take away. She is proof that solitude is not emptiness, but power. Proof that you can lose people and still not lose yourself. Proof that you can stand alone and still rise higher than those who surround themselves with many. Proof that the quiet path can lead to the loudest victories. Proof that the absence of friends does not mean the absence of destiny. Every step she takes reminds the world that she is not defined by who stands beside her, but by how she chooses to stand on her own. Every breath she takes reminds her that she is capable of enduring, capable of thriving, capable of rising, regardless of who notices. Every move she makes becomes a declaration that solitude is not weakness, but strength, not failure, but freedom, not punishment, but possibility. She carries the kind of power that unsettles those who depend on crowds. She carries the kind of peace that confuses those who cannot sit in silence. She carries the kind of strength that inspires those who have never dared to walk alone. She does not need to announce it because it is written in her presence, in her resilience, in the way she refuses to break. Her life is not small because it is lived in solitude. It is vast, it is expansive, it is limitless. She has discovered that when you are not tethered to others, you are free to soar. Her dreams have no ceiling, her potential no boundary, her growth no limit. She has proven that even in the absence of friends, she can create a life of meaning, a life of purpose, a life that speaks louder than any crowd ever could. She understands now that the path she walks is not one of lack, but one of abundance. The absence of many has made room for more of herself, and that fullness radiates in ways others cannot comprehend. She has discovered that freedom is not about doing everything with everyone, but about being able to do anything with no one. This realization has become her foundation, and it holds her steady when others falter. The world will often tell her that value lies in numbers, numbers of friends, numbers of invitations, numbers of followers, numbers of voices speaking her name, but she has already seen the fragility of that illusion. She knows that numbers can disappear, crowds can scatter, voices can turn silent. She has seen how people can celebrate you one moment and forget you the next. That is why she no longer seeks numbers. She seeks substance. She no longer seeks presence for its own sake. She seeks meaning. She no longer seeks to be surrounded. She seeks to be grounded. And she has found that grounding within herself. Each time she stands on her own, she proves that strength is not about how many hands lift you, but about how firmly your own feet hold you. Each time she faces a challenge, without the chorus of encouragement others rely on, she proves that resilience does not come from voices around you, but from the voice within you. Each time she reaches a milestone and celebrates alone, she proves that joy is not diminished by the absence of witnesses. It is intensified by the knowledge that she made it through without needing anyone to carry her there. She is not blind to the longing that sometimes arises, the natural human desire to share moments with another. But she does not let that longing define her. Instead, she lets it remind her of her capacity to give, her ability to love, her readiness to share if the right soul ever comes along. She does not shut herself off from connection. She simply refuses to beg for it. She does not close her heart. She simply protects it from those who would misuse it. She remains open, but she is never desperate. That balance is her power. The truth is that she has already faced the worst that solitude could offer, the sting of being left out, the ache of being forgotten, the hollow sound of unanswered calls. She has endured it all and emerged stronger. So now nothing frightens her anymore. If company comes, she welcomes it. If it doesn't, she thrives regardless. If love arrives, she embraces it. If it doesn't, she continues to grow. If opportunities open through others, she accepts them. If not, she builds her own. She cannot lose because her strength is not dependent on what is given to her. It is rooted in what she has created within herself. Her journey has given her a rare gift, the ability to see herself clearly, without the distortion of constant opinions, without the weight of comparison, without the noise of endless chatter. She has come to know who she truly is. She knows her strengths not because someone pointed them out, but because she has tested them herself. She knows her flaws, not because someone criticized her, but because she has faced them with honesty. She knows her worth, not because someone praised her, but because she has lived through trials that could have broken her, but did not. That clarity is priceless, and it guides her like a compass that never wavers. There is a quiet kind of courage in walking a road without companions. It forces her to find courage not in numbers, but in faith, not in affirmation, but in conviction, not in popularity, but in persistence. When she stands at a crossroads, she does not wait for someone else to choose for her. She trusts her own instincts. She makes her own decisions. She claims her own future. And because she has learned to do this in solitude, her choices are authentic, untouched by outside pressure, aligned fully with who she is becoming. She does not need to rush. She does not need to compete. She does not need to... Her solitude has also given her the ability to listen more deeply to the world, to her spirit, to her calling. She notices details others overlook. She hears the subtle rhythms of life that get drowned out in constant noise. She sees opportunities hidden in silence, lessons hidden in stillness, beauty hidden in simplicity. This attentiveness has become her strength, allowing her to move with wisdom, to act with intention, to create with clarity. She knows that people may never fully understand her, that they may label her, question her, even pity her, but she no longer needs their understanding. She no longer needs their permission. She no longer needs their validation. She has outgrown the need to be explained, to be justified, to be excused. She is not living for their acceptance. She is living for her truth, and that truth has carried her farther than their opinions ever could. What she carries within herself is not a hollow shell of loneliness, but a reservoir of strength, of wisdom, of peace. She has drawn from it in her darkest nights, and it has never run dry. She has leaned on it in her hardest trials, and it has never failed her. She has trusted it in her most uncertain moments, and it has never misled her. That reservoir is hers alone, and it will sustain her no matter what storms come her way. She is not fragile. She is not unfinished. She is not incomplete. She is whole. She is powerful. She is rising. And though the world may struggle to recognize it, she knows it within herself. She does not need to announce it. She does not need to prove it. She does not need to fight for acknowledgement. Her very existence, her persistence, her resilience, these are her proof. In her solitude, she has built a foundation that cannot be shaken. In her silence, she has discovered a voice that cannot be silenced. In her independence, she has cultivated a power that cannot be taken. She has walked through shadows and found her own light. She has faced emptiness and filled it with her own presence. She has endured absence and transformed it into abundance. Her story is not one of emptiness, but of becoming. It is not one of lack, but of fullness. It is not one of despair, but of triumph. She is not the woman who was left behind. She is the woman who kept moving. She is not the woman who was overlooked. She is the woman who became undeniable. She is not the woman who had no friends. She is the woman who discovered she never needed them to define her in the first place.